Hey everyone, how's it going? It's Charlie Morgan here and welcome to another video. Slightly different scene today. I'm just chilling here in my living area, stroke kitchen, and I got these cool big windows and I figured I would just do some work here today because, well, I've got great windows in the office, but I don't know, it just felt like a different backdrop. So the lighting's a bit off, forgive me. But I wanted to quickly share an idea with you. It's just a quick psychological mindset hack, and I'm sure if you've been watching some of my videos, you'll be aware that I like to talk about mindset hacks. And I'm not sure what the title of this video will be yet, but it revolves around victim mentality and how, like, your sort of self-dialogue. And there's a very subtle change you can make in your self-dialogue to completely change the narrative of your existence. And it's literally just changing one word when you're internalizing and localizing thoughts and events in your own narrative in your mind, like how you think about things, and most importantly, how you think about yourself. It's an awesome idea, and I'm going to share it with you, and it's going to help you probably grow your business, make more money, and have more fun. When you think you're a victim, you can't really move because, well, people who think they're victims tend to give up on trying to do anything to get out of their victim space. The victim mentality lends itself very well to abstinence from responsibility. And I genuinely think that a lot of the time people call themselves victims, not because, well, purely because they want to avoid taking responsibility for something that would probably cause them some suffering or pain. Instead, they'd rather just roll over and just say, oh no, it was this person's fault. And so I'm going to walk you through how to overcome this, because if you don't, you're never ever going to grow your company. Now, it's very subtle, right? There was a psychologist called William James. He's renowned for pretty much being like the modern father of psychology, at least in the USA and America. And William James basically proposed a theory, and it was a theory to do with the concept of the self, right? The actual, like, ability for us to have a look at ourselves and recognize who we are and what we're capable of and what we want to do. And what William James proposed is, good old Will came along one day and he was like, right, I think there's two selves. You've got the I self and the me self. And he was referring to these two concepts and these two ideas. It's very difficult to articulate these sort of principles, but he was referring to these two ideas, the I self and the me self, as vehicles and lenses for us to see ourselves through, right? So what this basically means is that when you see things through the I self, and I'll explain what these both are in a second, but when you see things through the I self, it's kind of like the narrative and the thought patterns that you build that manifest from the I self are productive, and they lead towards you taking responsibility. The me self is the antithesis of the I self, which basically means that, like, when you think about events and things that are happening, you kind of end up on the victim end of the side, if that makes sense. So it might not make much sense now, but I'm going to give you an example and it will solidify it. So let's say, okay, so I'm going to give you an example. Let's just say that someone has written a Facebook post, and there's something about the Facebook post that really has upset you. Okay, and now the thing is that if you go around on Facebook getting upset by things, then that's not very productive. It doesn't really help your business. And this is just a trite example. I'll try and give some more examples shortly. But the I self, right, the William James's principle here, the I self would narrate that thought pattern when using when we apply metacognition to this, which is thinking about thinking. If you use the I self lens, you would state that I got upset by the post, right? It's I, right? So what this means is you directly, we're talking about ourselves here. I got upset by the post. Now the me self, it's a subtle difference, but it encapsulates an entirely different realm of psychology, and we start to slip into the victim mentality when we get down to this. Because when you say I got upset by the post, because it's you, it gives you this sense of control. It's like, actually, I got upset by it, so it gives me a chance to overcome it. It's very rare that people talk in that way. It's very subtle. If you want to see if someone thinks they're a victim or not, don't ask them if they're a victim, because they'll get offended. Instead, look at whether they use the word I or me. So the me self would be that post upset me. So it's very subtle. So the first one, the I self, which is the productive, healthy one that we want to try and engage with, is I got upset by the post. And the second one would say the post upset me. Now, the reason this is an important difference to make is because the I self, like with the me self, it's kind of like life is happening to you. But with the I self, it's like you're happening to life. And the I self gives you a lot more control. If you just say, oh, that post upset me, then you haven't really given yourself any sort of personal leverage to overcome the neurotic, emotional, negative state that you've entered as a result of coming into contact with the stimulus is the post. And the reason we want to transition towards talking from the perspective of I, not me, is because it gives you this localized sense of control that you can actually exert to, change your psychological perspective and give yourself a healthier, more productive mental view, right? So another example. Okay, let's say, I want to try and keep these examples as simple as possible. Because it needs to be like when something happens to you, or when you need to sort of try and paradox it and flip it around. So let's just say, for example, the idea of going to university, right? So like if you were to say, I made the decision to go to university, that would be the I self. You are taking responsibility for that decision. Whereas somebody else might say, my parents made me go to university, right? And it's like, that might be true, right? There might be an element, but the thing is with that is but actually, this is the interesting thing, because as soon as your like perception of the truth corresponds with that statement, which it does as soon as it manifests out of your fucking mouth, then you believe it. So when you say like, my parents made me to go to university, you completely strip yourself of any responsibility to solve that problem. And what that does is it just traps you. You become a victim to your parents' decision. Okay, and so like, even if your parents made you go to university, it's still not too late to say, I let my parents force me into going to university. So what we can do is we can take the statement and replace the me with the I. And when we do that, we're able to build this sense of control. What would be another example here? The easiest example is just getting offended. So let's just give another example, right? Let's say like that person offended me, or I got offended by that person. Who do you think has a stronger grip on themselves and is going to be able to change their behavior and their reaction to the stimuli to produce better mental health, more focus, more clarity in business? So let's take business, for example. I'll give you a practical example. Okay, perfect example in outreach, right? So the I self, let's say you send out 100 emails and no one responds to you for your outreach. Someone who's got a productive identity, who wants to take control and responsibility and face the pain, would say, I sent 100 emails and got no responses. Someone who, on the other end of the spectrum, who's in the me self situation, would say, after 100 emails, no one got back to me. Right, and so like the person who starts it was like it's like, okay, it's me, I can control it. Like this has happened to me. However, I've happened to it. It's a weird thing to articulate, but I'm hoping the point is starting to solidify with you. Same with sales calls. It's like I couldn't close him is very difficult. They're very different from well, how would you like I didn't close the call, or something like, the call didn't close for me. You see what I mean? Like it's subtle, and I know that wasn't a very well articulated sentence, but I'm hoping you start to understand the point here. So this is an interesting thing, because now you're aware of this, you can actually observe this in other people. I observe it. It's really interesting to see in clients. It's interesting to see in friends and family members. And I'd never judge someone for using the me self. And I must admit, I'm guilty of doing it myself. All over it. You can probably go through my YouTube videos and find me talking saying oh, this has happened to me. Like the example was just there. You can go through my YouTube videos and find me doing it. Like right now, that might not be a perfect example, but you do get my point, right? I'm not perfect. There you go. That's an I self, for example. But when something happens in your life, instead of if it's negative or even if it's positive, you don't want to take it from the perspective of me. Because me implies that there's a third-party external event or stimulus that has had an influence on me. Instead, you want to think there's a third-party external influence, but I get to decide how it impacts me, if that makes sense. So not perfectly articulated by any stretch of the imagination, but I came across this idea a while ago, and I'm recording some mindset modules for our program. And like, you know, purpose of these YouTube videos is mainly for me to think. I won't lie to you. It's to flesh out ideas like this and just build a more coherent understanding of the psychological nature of business. That's what I'm super interested in, and this YouTube channel allows me to basically sit down and talk to you guys, and in the process it allows me to solidify my knowledge of concepts that I find interesting, and in the process I hope you can gain some value. It's also really interesting because when you can learn ideas, but you kind of want to also like peel back the wiring and behind that idea to figure out how someone arrived at that conclusion. So I'm not afraid to like record videos like this and then leave long pauses whilst I'm thinking, or stutter or have to think, because it allows you to actually engage with me in the thinking process that allowed me to arrive at the conclusion that we've now arrived at. And so yeah, that's basically everything for this video. I hope you found it useful. Now, if you do have a marketing agency or a high-ticket consulting business, then we may be able to help you get clients. If you are interested in our services, you can click the first link in the description. It's a funnel. There's no bullshit. It's designed to sell you something. You can book a call if you want. We avoid doing high-pressure sales calls with incentive-based pricing and all that crap. You can look at it. If you want to buy it, you can. If you don't, you don't have to. It's fine. But we might be able to change your life. That'll be fun. But if you enjoyed the video, just like it. You can also comment if you have anything to add, and also subscribe. Do not turn your notification bell on, because we value focus on this channel and I don't want to distract you from important work. Just check back in when you can. I'll talk to you soon. Have a good day.